Well, we have a France segue here, right? They're
Yeah.
giving us this. They gave us the Statue of Liberty in 1886, and in 2025, we are sending Patrick McEnroe to the French
Hey.
Open to cover
Right.
Roland Garros. We welcome to the Mark Thompson Show, and with the sufficient applause, Patrick McEnroe.
Oh, very nice.
Thank you.
I like that. I feel like I feel like I'm in the stadium at Court Philippe Chatrier.
Wow. Somebody's been studying, haven't they?
Which is the main center court at Stade Roland Garros. I like the accent, Michael, by the way. Very good. Very impressed by you.
Thank you very much. Patrick, I want to ask you one thing. Just clear, is it still the French Open, or is it now just called Roland Garros?
Well, they prefer that it's called Roland Garros because we call it the French Open because that's what we do. We're Americans, so we just do whatever we want. It's in addition to accepting $400 million planes, we obviously do that too.
Right.
So, but yes, the French, anywhere you go around Paris, around Europe, it's Roland Garros. So there's no such thing. There's the sign right there, Roland Garros.
I see. Okay.
And they're famous for making these beautiful artist renderings, drawings of the tournament each year. So I'm excited to see what that looks like. I haven't seen it yet this year, but it's Roland Garros. Who, by the way, do you know who Roland Garros was, Michael?
I do. If he never served in Congress, I have no idea.
He didn't serve in Congress, nor did he ever serve.
Really, he was not a tennis guy.
He served in the Air Force of France.
Wow.
In World War I. He was a pilot. He was a fighter pilot. And there you go. Look at this. You guys are on top of this. You got some major production value going right here.
We do. I mean, the Mark Thompson Show cuts no corners.
So what happened was there was the four horsemen. There were the famous French players that dominated. I think it was in the 10s or the 20s. Barotra, René Lacoste. There's four total of them. And they were so popular, they won the Davis Cup, beating the United States in the U.S. one year. And then the following year, they had to play in France, in Paris, to try to defend the title. There they are right there. This is unbelievable. I need this on my show. This is amazing. People actually listening to me. So they needed to build a stadium that was big enough because they were so popular. They were unbelievably popular in France for obvious reasons, and they had beaten the U.S. in Davis Cup, and they needed to build a stadium that was big enough to host this, to put it on. And that's when they built the stadium, and they said it was like I think it was a club, or I can't remember who was sort of commissioned the stadium, and they said, okay, you need to name it after one of our people. And we want to name it after Roland Garros because he had, I think, perished in the war as a fighter pilot. And so that was what they wanted to do to remember him, remember the club. And it's continued for, and they've redone the stadium. They've got a retractable roof on it now. So it's pretty cool.
Great.
So I'm excited to head over there on Wednesday with the new network covering. Of course, I've worked for ESPN for 28 years. And now Turner, TNT, is going to be hosting for the first time ever the coverage back in the U.S. So I'm excited about joining their team. And
will Charles Barkley be going with you for this one?
There's a rumor that he might show up. There's a rumor that Sir Charles will show up. So we're hoping that will happen. My brother will be over there with me, and Jim Courier is going to be on the team, and Lindsay Davenport and Andre Agassi. So it's going to be a host of big name tennis players.
That's exciting.
And then me too.
You're number one is in my book always. But Patrick, tell me what, this is the kind of thing that people don't know, right? I mean, we turn on the TV, you're there with in your broadcast booth with a couple of partners. What do you like? What are these days like? What is your day like in terms of preparing for each match? We know what the players do. We know what the coaches do. And the fans don't get to look a lot at what your day is like on the day of a big match.
I'm glad you asked that because this year, actually, I'm going to have a somewhat of a different role, which I'm really excited about because it's going to be on TNT, and they're also they're kind of doing it a little bit like the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
They bounce around. So I'm going to be hosting a show on True TV throughout most of the first week of the tournament. And what we're going to do is we're going to be like the red zone of tennis. So I'm going to have a little studio set up. I'm going to have different people joining me throughout the day, like my brother, like Jim Courier, like Lindsay Davenport, like Chris Evert. And we're going to just bounce around to all the hot matches. When I was a kid growing up in New York, this very
Yeah.
well. And I used to go out to the US Open as a teenager. And the first thing I always did, Michael, when I got on site, this was obviously before the internet, we had everything on our phones. I would go and where they would sell the programs. The program was too expensive, but within the program, you could buy a little 2-page sheet, and that sheet had every court, every match on every court. And I would
Right.
literally take the sheet, I'd study it, and I'd say, okay, I got to see this match. I got to go out to this match. When this one gets to the first set, end of the first set, I'm running out over there. And I would sort of plan out my day. We're going to try to do that on True TV this year. And we've got a lot of firepower production wise. I've been speaking to some of the producers in the last week. I'm super excited because it's going to be like you can finally be at home with your clicker, and we're going to take you. Hey, how come I want to see that set point on court 7? Let's go over there. Hey, what about court 12? It's 5-all in the first set. So
Yeah.
we're going to attempt to do that, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to it because it's sort of
Yeah.
something new for me.
That's fantastic, actually, because sometimes you are watching a match and another match is going on, and
Right.
you can't get to it and see it, which is really really fun. As an announcer, you have to not really show preference to who. I mean, I'm sure there are players that you want to win when you're doing matches. How do you separate being a fan from doing the job of being an announcer who's got to be pretty much impartial? I guess sometimes you can favor an American player a
Right.
little more
Right.
overtly, but is that ever tough for you?
All of us in this business of announcing. There's people from all over the world, right? When I go to all these
Yeah.
tournaments, so we always, the Italians want to see the Italians do well, the French want to see the
Right.
French. So of course we're going to root for the Americans because it's fun for us. It brings more buzz to the tournament, brings more energy, brings more eyeballs. It's good for
Right.
business. So we all do that to a certain extent. But what to me is the best about tennis is the individual matchups. It's
Right.
the rivalries. It's the seeing the different personalities. That's why my brother and Borg was such a great rivalry. That's why Chrissy and Martina, two different styles. And then obviously in the modern era, Federer, Nadal, two totally different players, different look, different.
You and Edberg. You and
Me
Edberg.
and Edberg,
Right.
I choked against him in the juniors in the finals of the U.S. Open and Wimbledon juniors. But I was lucky enough to play with some of those guys: Becker, Edberg, my brother Agassi Sampras. It's another great rivalry.
Yeah.
So I think more than rooting for the particular players, Michael, it's like rooting for those great matchups.
Right.
And then.
And that makes all the sense in the
And,
world. Yeah.
and and like Arthur Feast, for example, he's the highest ranked French player right now. Young guy, 20 years old, a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism, and a lot of moxie. He's got a lot of attitude.
Yeah.
So I'm going into this tournament and saying, man, I'd love to see him make a run because it'll be great for the tournament, great for the crowd.
Right. Yeah. And
But
that does make
that always brings a lot of extra buzz to the event.
no question. Let's talk about a couple of the players that first of all, we showed Yannick Sinner earlier. He lost to Alcaraz in Rome yesterday, and we don't talk about sports a ton on this program, but we do once in a while. But I think that tennis being so international, and being that Mark Thompson and I are both big tennis fans, but the Sinner Alcaraz, is that a rivalry that stands up to the ones you were mentioning earlier?
Well, that's going to have to stand up to some serious uh, names there and longevity, right? I
Right.
mean, you see Djokovic is still out there playing, the rivalries that he had with Nadal and with Federer. I mean, they played each other, 60 to 80 times. It's crazy. So,
Yeah.
the early answer to that question is yes. It appears that that's going to be the rivalry we're all going to be paying attention to for the next decade. I think there'll be some other guys potentially crashing the party, like Jacob Mensik from the Czech Republic, who won the big tournament in Miami, João Fonseca, who's only 18 from Brazil, who's bringing a lot to the table. But certainly right now, Michael, Sinner and Alcaraz have distanced themselves. They've far overtaken the players that have been in the mix the last 10 years. You know,
Right.
Medvedev, Rublev, Tsitsipas. They've blown past those guys. Zverev, who's number 2 now, back to number 3 in the world. And the only one that's won a major of those guys is Medvedev. And those
Yeah.
players were thinking that once Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic retired, it was going to be their time. Well, guess what? Sinner and Alcaraz have sort of, quickly reclaimed, like, we're here and we're going to win all the majors. We're going
Yeah.
to win all the big tournaments. And I'm not sure who else is going to be able to compete with them at that level. Right now, I mentioned a couple of those young names. Those guys are knocking on the door. They're not there yet. You've got Americans like Tommy Paul, Taylor Fritz, who made the U.S. Open final last year, losing to Sinner. All really good players. But
Yeah.
are they the type of level of these two guys? The answer is no. And just like the answer was no over the course of the last 20 years, a lot of really, really good players, a lot of guys that maybe would have won more majors, but they couldn't get over the hump with the big three. And then you added Andy Murray, Stan Wawrinka in there over the course of their careers. So it looks like we may be headed in that direction. But let's remember, these guys are both young, early 20s. And then you've got some guys even younger than them, Jack Draper, into the top 5 as an Englishman. And he's the guy that could do some serious damage at Wimbledon, especially with his firepower on the serve and on the forehand.
At the U.S. Open too.
U.S. Open too. He had a good run last year, made the semifinals. Yeah,
an Englishman in New York.
There you go.
If we before we let you go, I want to talk. There's a huge new tennis fan, or he's not a new tennis fan, but he's hugely new, and that's Pope Leo. He met with Sinner the other day. They had rackets out and balls that they were hitting inside the Vatican, and it was a pretty thrilling thing, I'm sure, for Sinner. That he asked the Sinner, said, "Do you want to play here?" And the Pope said, "Hey, we can't play right here." But there's a court at the Vatican, is there not? There it is. Yeah, look at that.
And it's a nice red clay court, and that's good. The red for the Pope, and
right,
and the white lines. And here's the thing, Michael. I can tell by how someone's handling a racket if they know what they're doing. And I could tell. I get my racket here, like the way he was holding the racket.
He's got a racket.
I can tell that he knows what he's doing.
That's amazing.
See the way he's holding it?
I do.
He's holding it like he knows exactly what he's doing.
Right.
Give me the shot here. There you go. See? I'm like,
that's right.
He's the real deal. I mean, the guy's the real deal. So
no papal bull.
I'm only upset that I didn't get a chance to get him in my second edition. Tennis for Dummies just came out, my book.
All right. Well, I was going to talk about that. I was going to talk about the radio show. And we had somebody write in here who is a listener and lover of your podcast, but it's too high up in the comments for me to find her right now. But tell me about the book. Tell me about the radio show.
Well, the book, I did the first one, I think it was 98. Okay. So it needed to get updated because obviously I talk about, technique and how to learn the game, scoring, just the basic stuff. So that hasn't really changed much. But what has changed is a lot of the technology, the rackets, the strings, and of course the great players, because I list the top 10 players of the Open era, top 10 great matches. So all that's updated. And it's a fun book. It's really fun. Right. And if anybody's just mildly interested in tennis, you pick it up and you can it's like something to just keep around. Oh, let me check out about this. Well, how should I hit my volley, my forehand volley? It's all in there. As far as the radio show, I stopped doing the podcast because I actually got a job and actually getting paid to do a radio show on Sirius XM. So, I mean, miracles do happen, Michael. Listen, we talked about the Pope. So I'm doing my radio show every Saturday morning, bright and early. So tennis fans got to get up early, but they wanted to let me do a show that was about other sports, but specifically about tennis. And
that's great. And that's on Mad Dog Radio, right?
It's on Mad Dog Sports Radio, 7 to 8 a.m. So I got to get up early, but there's my little holding court. And
by the way, you're holding your racket, I can tell you know what you're doing.
There you go. It's just the way I hold the microphone. Can do I know what I'm doing? So
right.
That's different. I've learned how to do that too over the years.
Quickly before you go, yes, indeed, you have very, very well. By the way, I always say to people that that you are the number one tennis announcer, and by the way, you also have a brother who announces, which is my favorite turnaround.
He's pretty good too. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's getting there. He's learning. Yeah. If I may just quickly, Novak Djokovic, can he Can he win another major? Do you think the $6 million man can be put back together and win another major?
I don't think he will.
Yeah,
Obviously, he can. I mean, he's the greatest
right.
player I've ever seen. When you look at the breadth of his work and the titles, the head to head against Roger and Rafa, I call it the spread, Michael, of
Yeah,
all the tournaments he's won on all the different surfaces is by far the best spread. You know, he's won 3 French Opens. That's supposed to be his worst surface. Okay,
right. It's amazing.
Federer, on the other hand, you know, was also a great clay court player, but only won 1 French Open. Now he's up against Nadal in most of the years of his prime, but so was Novak. So Novak, to me, is the greatest ever. That being said, I don't think he's going to win another major. I actually said this at the beginning of last year,
Okay,
2024. People thought I was crazy because he'd won 3 majors the year before, and
right,
at some point, you know, the injuries start to creep in. Best of 5. And what really it didn't creep in. What exploded onto the scene was Sinner and Alcaraz. Okay. And I just don't think that in best of 5 right now, if he plays one of those guys and they're playing their normal level, that he can hang with them. Now, I think Wimbledon is still his best chance. That's where he's been. I mean, obviously, he's been great in Australia too. He's won that 10 times. But
yeah,
because of the grass courts, there are very few players that really know how to play on grass.
right,
Okay, there's a lot of players that know how to play well on clay. There's a lot of players that know how to play well on hard courts. So I think there's more guys that can pick him off on those surfaces. But on grass, if he can get, you know, I don't expect him to be in the final 4 of the French Open.
right,
Okay, but if he can get some matches in, you know, play into the second week, get some confidence going. And number one, he's got to be healthy. But, you know, he
right.
had the knee injury last year. He's had, you know, the hip injury earlier this year. So it happens. He's going to be 38 this
It's
week.
amazing. Yeah,
And it's amazing that he's done what he's done for this long. But I think Wimbledon still would be his best chance because he could kind of probably not face someone that could beat him until the second week. Whereas on the other surfaces, he could face someone in the first, second round that could beat him. Um, and there's not that many guys that are that comfortable on grass. Medvedev's not that great on grass. Zverev, not great on grass. Those are great hardcore players.
right,
Casper Ruud, great on clay. The only guy is you know, he's not the only guy. The guy, Mr. Alcaraz, is amazing on grass. So if he's at his best, he's going to beat Djokovic on grass, just like he destroyed him last year. But
yeah,
Novak won. He did win a big one last year. He won the Olympics, which was
right.
on clay, and it was 2 out of 3, and that helped him, I think, a little bit. So I will never say never with Novak because he's the man. But I don't think he's going to win another major. And I think if he doesn't this year, or he doesn't get close to winning one, I think this will be his final year.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Patrick McEnroe. The book is Tennis for Dummies, the new edition, written by Patrick. Look for it. Go to that Mad Dog Radio, to the Serious Mad Dog Radio, and listen to Patrick's show, Holding Court. Great name for a tennis show. And TNT, you're all going to be watching Roland Garros. I mean, I've just from the comments here that so many people who are listening to the show are tennis fans, which is great. I thought this would be a sort
nice.
of out of the blue here. One of them even mentioning Melissa Errico, your wife, as a big Broadway star. So
there you go.
Nice. There you go. We'll look for you on TNT.
Let me give her a quick pop because you would love the show she did just over a week ago just outside DC. It was all about World War I. And she took all the songs of that era and she weaved them into like her own personal story of her family of immigrants coming from Italy and sort of the great songs of the vaudeville era that were happening in the 10s and the 20s. And it was a phenomenal show. And I think it's going to come to New York later this year, early next year. So that's exciting.
That is great to know. You worked World War I in with Melissa. You worked World War II in with Roland Garros.
Exactly.
We're covering it all here. Patrick, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the Mark Thompson Show. Good luck in France. We'll be watching.
I appreciate you having me on, Michael. All the best. And the last thing I'll say is low.
Low.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.